Welcome to the Exploring Unschooling podcast. I'm Pam Laricchia, unschooling mom and author, bringing you interviews, information, and inspiration about unschooling and living joyfully with your family. You can find the episode show notes, your free Exploring Unschooling ebook, and lots more information at livingjoyfully.ca. And here's the show. Hello everyone, I'm Pam Laricchia, and this is episode number 36 of the podcast. It's the 7th of September 2016 as I record this intro. In this episode, Lauren Seaver and I chat about her deschooling experience. Her 9-year-old son River left school a year and 3 months ago, and they began unschooling. It was a wonderful conversation. We ended up talking about her paradigm shifts, River's road to reading, how 99% of the deschooling process has been about her letting go of her own baggage and assumptions, how her understanding of learning has changed, her surprise that trust plays such a key role, and the immense value of unstructured play. As an update, there's been a lot going on around here in the last week or so. It kind of feels like the culmination of a lot of little steps. They all just seem to coincidentally come together around the same time. Last weekend, I drove Lissy back to New York along with her doggie, Burton. They've been missing each other for about 4 years now, and we've been walking toward this reunion for a while. Little steps like she's now in an apartment where she can have pets, and we got Burton's papers in order to cross the border, and we found a time that I could drive her back with him, those kind of things. So it's been in the works over the summer. And then with Michael, a couple of months ago, as I've mentioned, he started a full-time job. Last week, we found him a great used car. And yesterday, I helped him move into my mother-in-law's house to try out for work days. She passed away in the spring, and while things are in transition, he can keep an eye on the house, and it's closer to him for work. So all these little steps over the summer that seem to come together this week. Of course, none of these transitions are cast in stone, and we'll just see how they play out. But these last couple of steps this week have kept me happily busy and have felt a bit bigger than all the ones leading up to them. I am definitely also going to enjoy sinking back into the routine of my more typical days now. For a quote this week, I'd like to share one from Lauren in the episode because it's something that can so easily trip us up when we first begin unschooling. She said, "I think my biggest concern was that our unschooling life didn't match the picture of what unschooling looked like in my mind. I had these unschooling fantasies about what my own personal unschooling path would have looked like if I were unschooled as a child. Letting go of expectations was so huge for me to be able to really relish what was actually happening in our unschooling lives." Now, it's not surprising that when we're considering unschooling, in our mind, we picture what unschooling would look like from our perspective. We imagine how days would unfold if we had this time to pursue our interests and to do it our way. That's not surprising because it's what we know. But it can be a bit of a shock to discover that our kids have different ideas. Deschooling is so much about our work, about removing the filter of our expectations, so that we can more clearly see the unschooling in action that's happening right in front of us. It was such a great point, Lauren. Thanks. She also mentions her experience at the last Childhood Redefined Unschooling Summit. So I thought I'd remind everyone that registration for the next summit is open for one more week, closing on September 16th. You can find more info and register at childhoodredefined.com. And now, on to the interview. Hi everyone, I'm Pam Laricchia from livingjoyfully.ca, and today I'm here with Lauren Seaver. Hi Lauren!
Hi Pam!
Hi! Just to introduce Lauren a bit to everyone, I had the pleasure of meeting her earlier this year at the Childhood Redefined Summit in Canandaigua, New York. Her enthusiasm for life is contagious, and I am so excited to dive into her deschooling experience. So let's get started.
Awesome.
First, can you share a bit with us about you and your family and how you first came across the idea of unschooling?
Yes. So I have one son, River, and he's 9 years old. And he's amazing and hilarious. And he's a showman. And he loves to dance and rap and ride bikes and play video games. And he loves playing with his friends. And we live with my boyfriend, Aaron, and our hamster, Chewy. And River, Chewy is really important here. So he really is. And River also spends about 2 days a week at his dad and stepmom's house. So we're a blended family. His dad and I separated when River was 4, but we have a really good relationship. And River has always had a great relationship with both of us and our partners. So we're just really lucky. I also run my own business. And when I'm working, River is usually with my boyfriend, Aaron, or with his dad. All of us have alternating schedules, so it really makes unschooling doable while you're working, and we just feel really lucky. We also live very close to my parents and my sister, and our family is very supportive of unschooling, which is so awesome. So that's kind of us. And the story of how we came into unschooling actually starts a long time ago. Before River was born, I was going to school to become a teacher. So I was in college. And as part of that, I got to observe in a lot of different elementary classrooms. And through that process, I learned that not all teachers love children. And some teachers don't even like children. And it horrified me. And I was like, oh, wow, it's almost like luck of the draw if you get a teacher that really likes children and loves learning. And this was shocking to me. And it was then while I was in college that I was like, maybe I should consider homeschooling because I love kids and I love learning. And gosh, wouldn't it be fun to learn with my own kids? So I already, before meeting River's dad, I was like, okay, I think homeschooling is where we're going to go. So I hadn't learned of unschooling yet. But so then when I had River around 5 or 6 years later, I had a home birth, which is kind of alternative. And with that home birth community, there's the attachment parenting community, and all of that sort of leads into the homeschooling community. So it was almost like I had it all laid out for me, like, okay, we're going to do this. And through this attachment parenting community, one of my friends recommended the Consensual Living Yahoo group, which is created by Anna Brown from your podcast. And Pat Robinson, who are two amazing unschooling moms. And from there, I learned of the Shine with Unschooling Yahoo group and the Always Learning Yahoo group. And I was just like, oh, this is it. This is what I've been looking for. Because I knew from my own experience as a teacher and as a person that all of us learn best when we are interested and passionately engaged in what we're learning about and what we're doing. So it just was a no-brainer. Like, okay, we have to unschool. This is what we're going to do. So that was the plan. And so River was 2 at that time. And I did a lot of paradigm shifting, and we really lived in that manner as much as you can when they're so little. Like, we didn't limit TV or games or food or anything. And that just seemed really normal and natural. And we just worked on, meeting River's needs in creative ways and, just living joyfully. And so that was great. And then when River was around 4, his dad and I actually separated and then later divorced for all sorts of reasons. But so everything kind of changed. I went to work full time out of the home, and suddenly homeschooling and unschooling no longer seemed as feasible. So River had gone to this unique preschool that was 2 days a week in a homeschooling mom's house. And I was allowed to sit next to him at the table and hang out and be there as long as he needed me. And he really loved it. So I was like, well, this wasn't so bad. Maybe we can find a schooly option so that where he can go while I'm working. So we found a local school that was really alternative, and their focus was very much on kids learning about what they were interested in. It almost had a democratic slant to it. And I was like, all right, this could work. And he tried their summer camp for one day with the teacher that was with the youngest kids, and he loved it. So I was like, all right, let's try it. And he ended up being in that lady's classroom for 2 years, and he loved it. And he would run it every day. He'd wake up and want to go to school, and he loved it so much. And I was like, oh, good, thank God, this is all working out. because all that I cared about was that he loved what he was doing, because I knew he would learn whatever he needed to learn as long as he was loving what he was doing. And he and I are both really pretty outgoing and love to be around people. So I think that was part of what made this so fun for him. So the first 2 years were great. And I was like, all right, this is great. But then he began his third year of school, and it was with a different teacher. And this was second grade. He was 7 and then turning 8 that year. And it was totally different. Like everything changed. Even though this lady was really nice and the school is still this alternative school, he didn't love it anymore. And halfway through the year, I was dragging him out of bed to get him to go to school. And it felt like I was forcing him to go to school. And that was like against everything that I believed in. Because I so deeply believe then and now that we learn best when we love what we're doing. And it was clear that if I have to drag you out of bed, you are not loving going here. And I really felt like we needed a change. And at this point in time, I had quit my full-time job and had just started my own business that would end up giving me a lot more flexibility. And I brought up the idea of homeschooling to River. And he was like, no, I can't. I want to be with my friends. I want to go to school. I really like it. It's fine. No. And so through the rest of the school year, I just tried to support him as much as possible and kept bringing up the option of homeschooling. And at the end of that year, which was, I think it ended in 2015, the school actually closed due to funding issues. And I said, okay, your school's closing. What do you want to try homeschooling? And he was like, okay, let's try homeschooling. And as soon as school ended and we started homeschooling, it was like, oh my God, this is amazing. This is what we've been waiting for. And we've never looked back. And he loves it and I love it. And so that's kind of like our crazy, windy path to get to unschooling. I was always into it and wanted to do it and felt like we were supposed to. And then our lives were different and we didn't see it, as a possibility. And then, so now we've been doing it for probably a year and 3 months, I believe. So, because I really count that. I count May of last year.
Count those months.
Stopped because in my heart, we stopped earlier. I just wanted to take it. But so that's kind of how we learned about it and now finally chose it.
That is awesome. I really loved hearing about how your perspective wove through all that. The way you took, kind of those unschooling principles, or at least that perspective on learning and supporting each other, and have woven that into not only, as you said, your blended families and your extended family that's nearby, and right through always looking at River to kind of guide you through those choices, right?
Absolutely. And I'm so grateful for that, because that has been the foundation of our parenting and our lifestyle, like from the beginning. And I love that. It's so wonderful. Yes. And all of my relationships, not just with River, it's amazing. It's very far reaching.
Yeah. So. That was a wonderful story. Thank you. The next question was, what was your biggest concern that drove your choice to move to unschooling?
Yes. Well, so like I said, River was not wanting to go to school. It changed from running into being like, oh, I don't want to get up. And the biggest issue I felt was reading. The school he was going to was really friendly and alternative. And, they have different positive names for things, but he was basically in a remedial reading group. And even though the teachers are kind and gentle, he still had reading homework, and he felt this pressure to learn to read. And he totally, he felt so much pressure way before he was ready. And I knew this. I was like, wait, why are you pushing this? He will learn to read when he's ready. We don't need to do this homework. We don't need to do any of this stuff. It's not helpful. And I'm a passionate book lover. And I knew that if he was just left alone to explore words and books and text and whatever, in whatever way interested him, that reading would come naturally, whenever he was ready. And I was really sad thinking that this kid who, was so excited and awesome and hilarious and talented and enthusiastic was having a possibility for future love of learning squashed out of him by this experience, this emphasis school was placing on a skill he wasn't ready to learn. And I was heartbroken just knowing he was feeling bad about himself, thinking like, oh, I'm like feeling bad about his own abilities around the idea of reading. Because when he would talk to me about it, the message he was receiving was basically, you should be able to read these books right now, and you're a failure because you can't. Like, this is really how I believe he felt. And when I think back to it, I'm like, how did I let him keep going to school? I can't believe this. Because it's so like awful. And I know, and that was not the school's intention. They were just trying to help him, but they're a school and they're like, you need to learn this by this time. And that's just how they think. And so anyway, so this idea that River was thinking, he would even say, I'm bad at reading. I hate reading. And it was just like, oh, this is awful. But that was my number one reason. And then, the other real reason was that I felt like we were supposed to be doing this all along. And then this moment in our lives opened up where it was like, okay, now this is a real feasible time, like a real possible time for us to do this. Let's do it. So that was, that's a huge motivator in that.
Yeah. It's like it was something in the back of your mind always, and you're paying attention and you saw when those possibilities started to come together.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. And what's so interesting too is that whole reading piece, that was very much Lissy's experience at school too. When she came home, it was all, I hate reading. I don't want to read. I can't read, all those messages. And we, just made sure to totally back off. And it took about a year for her to, move past all those messages that she had gotten, because she was in second grade when she left too.
It's the same as River. Yeah.
Yep.
It's amazing. It's like if we could just, as a culture, just look at people and just let them be, like, they're going to get it. You just got to leave them alone. And it adds all this baggage, this unnecessary baggage. And it's so detrimental,
Yeah.
So.
Yep, it does. I know you've talked a lot, you mentioned anyway, that you learned a lot about homeschooling and unschooling, even, when River was young, before he even went to school. But I wonder if there were any, when you finally jumped into it a year and 3 months ago, if you still had some fears or uncertainties.
Well, at first, when we started, we really were literally returning to this home birth community and attachment parenting community. So the first feeling was like, oh my God, we're home. This is so awesome. And these people are so weird like us, and not like us, but it's the same stuff, similar values. And it's just so, and seeing my old friends and his old friends, and he'd be like, I knew this kid when I was a baby, but and it was really great. So I wasn't even thinking of the fears then. But when I think about it, the first few months, I think my biggest concern was that our unschooling life didn't match the picture of what unschooling looked like in my mind. So I had these unschooling fantasies, what my own personal unschooling path would have looked like if I were unschooled as a child. And I'm one of those people who throws themselves into whatever they're learning. So when I was a kid, I was into pioneer days and, the mid 1800s and westward expansion. And when I was into that, that was my whole life. And so I had a pioneer dress with a bonnet I wore, and I had the American Girl doll, and I read all the books, and all the books I read were about the Oregon Trail and that time period. And I played the Oregon Trail video game and made food from that time period, all of that. So I'm the type of person who throws myself into stuff and it becomes my entire life. So then River and I, start this unschooling path. And I was noticing, wow, River doesn't learn exactly how I learn. Think that wouldn't be a big deal. But for whatever reason, I had envisioned something when he was really interested in tornadoes and lightning, he didn't want to be thrown into a world of weather. And I could get all the books out from the library about weather. And he's like, I'm not looking at those. I don't care. And so it was a really big deal for me to learn oh, wait a second. Just because this is how I learn doesn't mean that's how he's going to learn. And just because I thought it was going to look this way doesn't mean that's what it's going to look like. And so I think just letting go of expectations was so huge for for me to be able to really relish what was actually happening in our unschooling lives. So letting go of those shoulds and like just being there and actually witnessing what was happening was what helped me to see, oh my God, he's learning so much. And look at the way he does it. It's so fascinating, and what he's interested in. And so that was big for me. So I don't know if it's as much fear as it is just like letting go of baggage. I think that's kind of like a key piece in my unschooling experience and in our unschooling experience, me letting go of baggage.
Yeah, I think that's such a great point, Lauren, because when you met the phrase unschooling fantasies, because as parents, we're learning about unschooling, right? Yeah. And we are excited enough about it to, want to try it with our families. Yeah. But we've built such a picture in our head of what that's going to look like. And truly, it's not surprising that's based in our own experience and how we would like to learn if we had this possibility, right? So, that's such a great point. Something to really pay attention to shift the focus to seeing how they like to live their days and how they like to learn and supporting them. Of course, we're going to, start from our own perspective, but to be open, like you said, to dropping those expectations and seeing what actually comes out of it, right?
I know, like for me, the shifting my focus from the imaginary child that I had envisioned before I had River to being like, oh, this amazing, complex person in front of me who is his own person, and actually just him and celebrating him versus like whatever I had expected has been probably one of the biggest aspects of parenting that has been like a growing process and like oh wow, like they really pop out themselves and you just are there to witness them and support them as much as you can and love them and grow by being around them. Amazing, really.
It really is. It really is. I love the way you explain that. And that leads very nicely into our next question. I'm just wondering a little bit more about what your move to unschooling has looked like, whether it's been pretty smooth. You talked a bit about letting go of your expectations. Have you talked to River specifically about unschooling itself, the kind of the processes or principles behind it? Or have you found, as you've been talking about, the changes to be more internal to you? So most of your focus has been on how you're choosing to observe River and how you're changing your responses to him and letting go of the expectations.
Yeah, definitely. I think, I don't think I've talked to River much about it other than to, support him in living everyday life. And like, he knows we homeschool. Well, I'm sure if he used the word unschooling and said, this is the kind of homeschooling that we're doing when, because there were points in the beginning where he was like, oh, wait, aren't we supposed to be doing like something? Should I do some math? And I said, do you want to? And I might write out some questions for him if he really wanted me to at that time. And then he'd be like, oh, okay, I know how to do this. That's fine. Like I think he had a couple of concerns and in the very beginning, but now he's just like totally into it. He has I think our foundation of unschooling friends and has been very helpful. Just has helped us ease into this. And then he has just been loving life and exploring things of interest to him. And it's just better than I could have thought. It's been pretty seamless. And the majority of the changes have totally been internal for me, and they continue to be. Like River's naturally really awesome at doing the things he loves and having fun, and which is where all of the learning is. So it's like he doesn't really have to work on this stuff, where 99% of the process is me, again, letting go of my own baggage and assumptions and things that help me to better connect to him and better celebrate him and our lives. And I really think having a community of other unschooling parents locally, as well as online, to reach out to and explore my own stuff with has been really helpful. And like you said, I went to the Childhood Redefined Unschooling Summit with you and Anne, and it really shifted my perspective so dramatically. It just really helped me to see things in such a more positive way. And I realized afterwards, it had such an impact on me that I I felt changed and I acted in a different manner. It's hard for me to put into words, but I noticed that I have a lot of power in our home. Like I can change the energy of our home with my own choices and the viewpoint that I'm bringing to every interaction. And that was like amazing to me. I really noticed like if I shift into a more positive, loving, peaceful place where I'm celebrating what's happening and what River's celebrating, what Aaron's celebrating, everything changes. And that was mind blowing that like I really impact this family so much, and we all do. But it just I have a lot of power inside of myself. So anyway, I think that's kind of like my work as an unschooling parent, to do that work within myself that allows me to see and celebrate River for being his own unique self, and then to support him in the ways that are best for him on whatever paths that he chooses. And and just our connection, So
yeah. That's lovely.
Well, thank you. I love that summit. Recommend it to everyone. Like I can't explain it. It's that whole idea of like, oh, I paradigm shifted back when he was 2. And it's like, oh, wait a second. There was way more to do.
Oh, that's awesome. Next question. Can you tell us a bit about how your definition of learning has changed since discovering unschooling?
Yes. Well, it's been an evolving process since I was in that teacher training program back however many years ago. I have to do the math for it. It's a long time ago. But then, so I had I had a pretty unschooly definition of learning when River and I started homeschooling. But when we started, I still was making lists of the subjects to keep track of what we were or were not covering for my own records and peace of mind. And so if we played Uno or a game with a map, I check off math or geography thinking, okay, we cover that today. And after like a couple of months, I just dropped that stuff, because when you're just doing it, you just start to see like, oh my God, he's learning so much and so much more than I could ever write down. And what really amazed me was our conversations and the depth with which we would explore questions and topics and just how much we were both learning together. I feel like I see learning in such a limitless manner now. And that there are no have-tos, there are no shoulds. It's just choices and options and ways, like an expansive, there's just so much. There's no not learning. You're always learning. It doesn't matter. But how, maybe if we follow joy and try to live in a manner where we're most content, that is going to be really fun learning. So like, you know that, because no matter what you're learning. And I also, something I love is that it's so not just about River learning. It's like us learning as a family. River has really been into BMX biking for the past few months, and that stemmed in part because my boyfriend Aaron was really into it. He was rekindling this passion from his childhood, which I think has a lot to do with our unschooling. And like, I really think that he was excited, thinking about stuff and started looking into his own passions because of it. And then we have an unschooling family friend, like their whole family, we're good friends with them. They're wonderful. They're huge into BMX biking too. So these relationships kind of inspired a passion in River for it. And now BMX biking is a way that he connects with my boyfriend Aaron and this other unschooling family, and we all go to skate parks together and we watch BMX videos on YouTube to learn tricks, and he and I go on lots of bike rides, and these bike rides lead to all sorts of conversations about all sorts of different things, depending on where we go. And it's just amazing. Our just learning just keeps happening based on whatever we like. Another thing, he and I are really into the musical Hamilton, which we learned about from Camp Shine this summer from someone who, some people who loved it. And so we bought the CDs and we started listening to it and like falling in love with the music, because River loves rap and he loves music. That really led him into wanting to explore past wars, because there's these battle songs that are really awesome. And that led us to go to a Civil War reenactment as a family. And we're all kind of learning about these different topics in our own ways. And I just love being able to witness how our paths evolve from a single interest or question that one of us is exploring, and then how they connect, so that whole limitless nature of learning. It just feels like it's all about choices and following our joy. So it's awesome.
That's it. Yeah. I mean, those are beautiful stories.
I love them. It's so fun. It's like, it just goes beyond. What I know now is that until we did it, I couldn't know how beautiful it would be or how full and rich it could be, and it's like, I just couldn't know. It's so much, and especially with that teaching background, you might come into something thinking, okay, we're going to learn these things, this set list of things, but with unschooling and with this idea of limitless learning, there's no boundaries. Like, there's so much more to learn. So I love that.
I love how each of your answers is like leading into the next question. But before we get there, I love your phrase limitless learning, because that was the huge piece for me, is because, before, when we started, it was all about the learning, right? It was, okay, if they're not going to school, I'm going to replace the learning somehow. But yeah, that first year of just watching them and seeing it, and just, I tried to journal, I tried to write, things down. I would go for maybe a week, and then there was just too much to write.
Yeah.
It expanded into life, right? You see the learning in every minute. So, okay, let me read the next question, just so that people know what we're talking about. Did you find a difference between understanding the principles of unschooling intellectually and then living them day to day?
So
that was basically your last one.
but when I read this question, I was like, yes. I wrote yes like 5 times, and because this was a big surprise to me. So I think I said this already, but since I learned about it when he was 2, I was like, I did my paradigm shifting. I got this. We're just going to, become unschoolers. This is awesome. But then I realized, oh my gosh, I still have lots to unload through the process of doing it. And I think for me, the biggest piece that I didn't realize would be such a huge piece, even though I'd read all about it, was trust. And that trust that is really essential to unschooling is in a lot of ways born out of the act of unschooling. So kind of like the chicken and the egg, you can't have the trust until you trust, but you develop the trust through trusting. And I just feel like having trusting him and his own path, that I had to live that in order to build that. I didn't do it before we unschooled. And that the amount of trust that is needed and that comes out of unschooling has just blown me away, and how that connects us and how he trusts me to support him in his learning about anything and everything. And so if he comes to me with a question or an interest or something that he just happens to say, he trusts that I'm going to listen and respect him and support him in learning more about it and finding the resources he needs. And I trust that he will learn everything he needs to learn by following his passions and joy. And it's just, I didn't know how deeply we could trust each other. And I didn't know how connected we could become before we were unschooling. And so I really, I think there's a huge difference between, because I read about it forever and and that's the way that I learn. I love reading everything about a topic, and then maybe I'll act on it or not. But so this was mind blowing, the difference between actually living it versus just reading it. It was amazing. So,
I think that is part of, because I found the same thing. I mean, the relationships just blew me away. I had no idea the depth of trust and connection that you could have. I mean, with another person, I don't think I had, that kind of connection with anyone.
I know.
And maybe that's why, when I asked in the 10 questions episodes, what is the best thing or, that you found when looking back on unschooling, what has been, the most surprising or your favorite outcome of it? And relationships has pretty much always been the answer, because it's just something you can't get. You don't understand when you get started until you develop it, right?
And I was shocked by that. Because I'm like, we are so close. I'm closer to him than anyone. And I just can't believe how much closer, like worlds closer that we became through the process of unschooling. And it's like, you just can't know until you do it. And it's mind blowing, really.
It's true. It's true. I was wondering if you could talk a bit about what changes you've seen in River since he left school.
Yes. Well, he just loves his life. He loves homeschooling and unschooling. And he'll say to me regularly, Mom, I love my life. And I just seen him become happier and more confident and more flexible and more understanding. Just like a lot of changes. He will proudly tell anyone that he's homeschooled. Recently we were at a party and another kid asked, so did you go on any vacations this summer? And he responded with, well, pretty much every day's a vacation for me. So laughing because he really feels like my life is so fun. And one of the most interesting shifts that I've seen is that he's grown so much socially since we started homeschooling, which I love it. I just think it's funny that so many people are that big question about socialization. But he gets along so much better with other kids now, which has not always been the easiest thing for him. I just feel like he's become more empathetic and understanding. And I think that has a lot to do with all of the unstructured play he gets to have with other homeschooled friends, as well as friends in our apartment complex. He has so much time to just be with kids in an unstructured manner where no one is saying, time to do this, you guys need to interact in this way, or even just someone micromanaging their conversations. And he's playing in these unstructured settings with me there to support as needed, of course, but I've just seen so much growth in those ways. And another big thing I wanted to mention was the reading. He started reading halfway through the year while simultaneously avoiding all books because negative school experience. And so when we first started unschooling, if we weren't out connecting with friends and we were home, he mostly spent his time playing video games or watching YouTube and so I just love that he really started learning how to read by, just doing stuff online that he really liked. And so when he started reading probably 6 months into that unschooling journey, and he would read signs in the drive-thru or read comments on YouTube, read directions to a video game. He'd type in words if he was looking for information, read the words on a YouTube lyric video of a song he liked. He really is into music. So he'd even have me pause it so he could read the whole thing. And I remember him reading something with the word champagne in it. And I was like, holy crap, he just read champagne. And I feel like this experience of him reading on his own without any support from me besides to read, I'm with him and I'm reading things when he asks me to or typing something in for him, on games, but without having someone sitting down with him and teaching him how to do it. I think this was super empowering for him after his school experience. And after that, he started to go back to the library with me, and he would read books to his friends at the library or at his cousin's house. And it's just like he reclaimed it for himself. And just to me, that is so healing and so wonderful, because that was my biggest concern, was this bad experience that, could sit with you for life. But I feel like that has been a major change over the past year. And I don't care that he can read or not. He's 9 and he could take forever. I don't care. But what I care about is that he owns it, it's his, and I really think he knows that wow, I did this on my own, and I love that. So.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Owning the experience, giving it back to them to whatever timetable they want to, have, they end up having whatever, but for it to be back in their court so that they have choices and control over it. Right.
Yes.
Yeah, that's awesome. What has been the hardest part of your unschooling journey so far?
This question I thought was so hard because I feel like we haven't had a lot of hardships with unschooling. Sometimes life can feel hard, but that's not because of unschooling. It's and we went from a lifestyle where River was in school for 6 hours and I was working out of the home for 9 hours. And then we'd come back home together at the end of the day. And it was we only had the worst of ourselves to give each other. And we're both grumpy and exhausted. And so going from that to a lifestyle where he's home so much more and I'm home so much more and we're together so much more and there's no pressure to do stuff he doesn't want to do and I'm working a job I love and I'm, like we're both really fulfilled and happy. I feel like it's only made everything better and easier and more wonderful. And I think sometimes parenting can feel really hard and living as a member of a family can feel hard. But unschooling actually makes all of it easier and better. And so I didn't have a good answer.
No, that's a great answer. It's great to see your perspective, to hear your perspective, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it hasn't been hard. Awesome.
It's been awesome. Yay. We might have touched on this before, but what has surprised you most about your journey so far?
Yeah. For me, especially I come from that teaching background again. And like the biggest surprise for me about unschooling has been that unschooling is not really about learning. It's not about education. And I mean that in a respectful way. Like I don't mean to belittle the learning that River is doing and that I'm doing with our lives. Like we are learning so much more than I ever imagined we would learn, but it feels totally secondary to like a benefit that occurs along the way. But to me, unschooling is about living and about joy and about our relationships, like you said before. And like that has been the biggest surprise for me because I was coming into it thinking, oh, this is how he's going to learn the things he needs to learn, just like he would have at school. But instead, it's really, no, this is just our life. And this is how we enjoy living. And I don't know. I was in a Facebook conversation with Ann Oman, and she wrote in a comment, the learning is a byproduct of the living. And I was like, yes, that's exactly it. It's just that by living these wonderful, excited lives, and we have our own issues and struggles at times, of course, by living through all of life, we are learning so much, but that's just a piece of it. I don't know. It's so beautiful and it's so wonderful and it's so rich. And it's so much about just us celebrating being together and our lives together and what we love. It's about so much more than learning. That was a surprise to me.
Yeah, I think at first we think of learning as the lowest common denominator. That's what we go to school. It's for the learning. It's for the learning. Yet once we start living it and seeing it in the wild, maybe is a way to put it, is you see there's actually more. There's roots to learning. There's a foundation a foundation of living and relationships and connecting and trust and everything that lies at the foundation beneath learning. So instead of focusing on the learning, when we focus on creating that strong foundation, like the learning is the byproduct that just kind of bubbles up out of it, right?
And it's so beautiful. And I would never diminish the importance of that learning, but it's like like you said, the relationships. I just am in awe of how close we are and how it's something I take for granted now, almost, how close we are, but it's the byproduct of unschooling and living this life. So it's so awesome. That's all. It's so much more awesome than I thought. And I already thought it would be awesome. So that's so good.
It's awesomer.
It's awesomer than I thought it would be, which is so great.
Well, that's awesome. I want to thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me, Lauren. That was so much fun.
Oh, I know. Thank you so much, Pam. This is, and like I said, I'm a throw myself in type of person, and unschooling has been one of my big, huge passions. And so it's so fun to talk about it and to think about it and to explore it. And because I won't do that with River because, it's not really his big passion. So it's so nice to talk to other people who are into it,
No, that's exactly it. Like you mentioned earlier too, I didn't, use the word unschooling with my kids. I think for a few years, I think when we went to the first conference, it had unschooling in the name, but we're just like not going to school. We're homeschooling. That's that. And, they figured it out. They figure out life and live and just, pursue it. And we're the ones doing all the work, seeing how, learning can really happen in everyday living. Yeah. Anyway, before we go, where's the best place for people to connect with you online?
Probably on Facebook. Facebook. My name's Lauren Seaver, and I can send you a link to, which my page is, but I don't really have any, other big things. Online.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Me on Facebook. I love Facebook, and I'm always, putting fun stuff up there of what we're doing. So.
Yep. And they can send you a quick message saying they heard you on the podcast if they'd like to connect, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yay. Well, thank you so much again and have a great day.
Oh, thank you so much, Pam. You have a wonderful day.
Thanks for listening. I hope you found it helpful. You might also like the backlist episodes at livingjoyfully.ca/podcast. And if you'd like to immerse yourself in unschooling ideas and inspiration with a group of like-minded parents, check out childhoodredefined.com for information about the Childhood Redefined Unschooling Summit. It's being held in Bethany Beach, Delaware, October 19th to the 21st, hosted by me and Ann Oman. Registration is now open until September 16th. Have a great day.